Hey there, everyone. Welcome to On the Ball with Rob Emery, where we chat all things mindset, mental health, and give you practical advice on how to apply these daily to make sure you are able to have and maintain a positive, healthy mindset. So on today's podcast, I have the legend that is Will Mbanga, and look forward to him sharing his thoughts with us. He's got some cool stuff he'd like to speak about. But yeah, Will, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, Rob. Thanks very much. Great to be on this podcast and just shooting the breeze about stuff to do with mindset and mental health. I think having worked in education and training for a long time, and particularly with coaching, seeing mindset issues has been a big part of informing what I do. And certainly, confidence and people give the best out of themselves comes a lot around our mindset. And then with mental health, certainly in the last 10 years or so, as a man, seeing some of the stuff some of my friends have gone through, some of the stuff I've gone through, I've just realized how important it is particularly for men, but for everyone, to deal with their mental health and to look at it positively. And I think there's this negative connotation of, if I talk about mental health, there's something wrong with me. And it's more about your well-being, and mental health does not equate mental illness. And I think that's the big fallacy out there, is if I say to people, I'm trying to look after my mental health, a lot of us think, well, if I'm talking about my mental health, then people are going to think that there's something wrong with me. And it's not about something wrong with you at all. It's about looking after yourself to be the best version of yourself in the world.
For sure. That's yeah, I suppose it's a negative connotation that people put to that. And we have spoken on this podcast before about mental health and stuff like that. And I guess we need people to understand that you need to accept whatever is going on, and like you say, if you share it is, I guess, a problem shared is a problem halved at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And sorry to interrupt. I think one of the biggest issues is we all think that by sharing something, the person we're sharing it with, we're expecting them to solve our problem, or we think that we're going to burden them with that expectation to solve a problem, and it's not that at all. It's about getting it out of you for a start. And sometimes hearing yourself talking about your problem helps you to start resolving it. Yeah. And then oftentimes somebody else hearing whatever you're going through, sometimes somebody could say, oh, I've gone through, or I'm going through exactly the same thing, and I found that this helps. Or I know somebody who might be able to help you because, and it's just those sparks that come out of having that conversation. But the challenge is opening yourself up and being vulnerable, and finding those people, that person, to say, I want to have a conversation about something that I'm going through, that I'm really struggling with. And this is where, obviously, in terms of your relationships with your mates and people, is knowing that I can talk to this person and I know that I'm not going to be judged. I know that my concerns, my issues, whatever it is, are safe with them. Yeah. And that at the end of the day, even if they don't have any solutions for what I'm going through, they will be there for me. They'll have my back. And those are all really big things.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think when we use the word vulnerability, and I don't know if this is because it's a preconceived idea that it's, if you show like that you need help with something, that you are weak and vulnerable. I don't think vulnerability is probably the right word. It's just being honest about how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And I think when you say to people, be vulnerable, I think that can also just create a space where they're going like, I don't want to be vulnerable. Like I'm not into being vulnerable. But like if you have a conversation with someone and say, listen, dude, I'm really having a shit time today. Is it really being vulnerable? Or you're just being honest with that person so they can know where you are and where you two stand at that specific moment in time.
Yeah. And again, this is where you've got to think about your relationships with people. There's some people that you can be honest with in terms of, hey, I'm struggling at the moment. So if I'm a bit short with people or whatever, I apologize. I'm just going through some stuff. And then there's people you can be vulnerable with, where you're going, listen, I'm really in the shit here. This has happened.
Yeah.
This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm afraid of. And I'm feeling overwhelmed. And it's that kind of, you know, your colleagues at work saying, guys, I'm taking strain at the moment. So if I'm a bit short with you, please understand there's a backstory. They don't need to know the detail.
Yeah.
Whereas having those people, you can genuinely be honest about the emotions and the feelings behind whatever you're going through with, I think is hugely important. And that's where, particularly men, that's where we fall down a lot, because it's just not, you know, oh, if I show that bit of weakness, you know, that's a chink in my armor that guys are going to have a go at. And it's sad that we've become like that. But actually, if we have genuine friends who care about us, you know, there will be those guys that you can go to and say, hey, listen, this is really how I'm feeling, and it's painful, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and I think it's taking away, and that's why I think particularly men, if you use the word vulnerable, they immediately attach it to a weakness.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's not and I think if we sometimes maybe you can reword what you use, and I find, like, particularly when you coach certain teams and stuff, there's just some words that just don't work with people. And I find if you just change the word that you use, like, let's say communication, for example, like, it's the biggest thing in anything. Like, you struggle in relationships, you struggle at work, you struggle with your friends, you struggle on the sports field, you struggle with, like, communication. It's the simplest thing. We can all sit around a table, you know, the guys that drink have a couple of beers and shoot the breeze, but when they really need to speak, they don't get it out there. And it's just changing words like vulnerable to just being honest. And it's like you said, not everyone needs to know the nitty gritty. It's got nothing to do with them. But if they know that you're not at 100%, or you may not be having a good day, they may know, let me just back off a little bit, because you might have quite a banterful relationship and they just bantering, and it's just getting worse because you put on a face going, I'm brave, I'm strong. But meanwhile, the more they're bantering, the worse you're starting to feel. And if you just said,
absolutely,
dude, I'm not in for it today, just give me some space, and, you know, we'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been interesting. At my rugby club, one of the things that we've looked at introducing this year is a group of well-being, not specialists, but kind of how do I say, just people that have been identified in the club as well-being champions, I guess. And our role is really for people to be able to come and say, hey, listen, I'm really taking strain. I need some support, or I need people to back off me, or whatever it is that they need, or if it's just get stuff out. And I think it's a huge step forward. And one of the things that we talked about in terms of a training workshop was exactly that issue of, we're in this environment where we've got testosterone fueled, you know, rugger buggers, and it's all beer and banter and whatever. You know, occasionally a player will say, hey, coach, so-and-so is really taking strain, this has happened in his life, you know, can you put an arm around or give him a break or whatever? And coaches are going through stuff as well. You know, as coaches, we're still people. We still have a life away from the game that has impact on how we feel and our well-being. So it's been a really interesting journey. And one of the things in terms of that culture and that environment that we sort of identified is how do we show that we care? How do we tell people we care in an environment where the word care has connotations of being soft and cuddly and gentle, and whereas everybody's kind of out there, it's all the testosterone, and, you know, I can get one on the next guy. And it's been fascinating to try and introduce that aspect of, you know, we are a caring community. And how do we show that? What does it look like in our context?
Yeah, and I generally find that the teams that do well are the teams where people generally show an interest and are invested and care about each other. And it's like you say, it's just, if you see someone struggling, go and speak to them. Even if you grab them and quietly take them somewhere and just say, listen, dude, what's going on? I mean, I coach rugby down where I am, and, we've got the guys also come, and they do now. They're coming to us and they're going like, I'm really struggling with this, or I'm really struggling with this. I need some space, or I'm finding this difficult to deal with. And, then you can work with someone, and you can work with them through the challenges. Or you can say, well, take the space, and when you're ready, come back. Like it's understanding. Like, I suppose rugby is like you said, testosterone, adrenaline filled place. But for me, rugby was always my sanctuary. So when I really had a rubbish day, I loved going to rugby and just blowing off the steam and having banter with your mates and all that kind of stuff, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my point of view on that anyway. But yeah, like you say, I think if we can show that we care and just genuinely show interest in people, that's what I think that makes the world of difference. And that can be at work as well. If you just genuinely care about people. I mean, you don't have to have them around to dinner every night. Just be there when they need you.
That's it. And I think, again, it's that there's that perception of, if we're going to show that we care and all that sort of stuff, we have to be this paragon of light and this beacon of wisdom and stuff. And it's just being present.
Yeah.
And when people see that, in that moment when you're talking to them, listening to them, you're genuinely present, and you're really interested, and you're really taking on board what they're saying. That's what people want. That's what people need. And often it's just that, okay, I've got it out, and somebody really listened to me.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference to the person's mindset and how they feel going forward from there.
Yeah, absolutely. What I suppose the challenge being the stigma attached to it, and if we change the language around what we're using to get people to do it. I mean, I know you're on a massive mission to get guys in general talking to each other, because we're all macho and none of us want to show weakness. And, there's no, it's like you say, me, Tarzan, you, Jane type story. How have you found interacting with people out there, with people sharing their stories and their vulnerability or their truth?
It's been very much like a cat and mouse game. But the funny thing is, once people got to the point where they're comfortable and thought, actually, this is genuine, this isn't just a shot in the dark, somebody saying, are you okay? And I'm not okay. And I say, I'm not okay. Oh, I say I'm okay. No, that's the end of it. And then suddenly people start sharing, and then you go, whoa. But it's not about people oversharing. It's that suddenly, from being in a place where, hey, how you doing? No, I'm good. Suddenly people are saying, actually, I'm not good. And this has happened to me, and this happened, and this is affecting me, and this is worrying me. And you're going, but I see you every day, and you're this happy-go-lucky, bantering, carrying on, wisecracking guy.
Yeah.
You're that strong guy in our group or whatever. And suddenly you think, bloody hell, lots of people are going through stuff. I'm going through stuff. But I didn't know that they were going through stuff. I didn't know that had happened to them, and that's how they really feel. Because we don't talk to each other. And when we talk, it's all on the surface. Everything's okay, because that's how I want people to see me, perhaps. And again, it's that fear we were talking about earlier, where I can't be seen to be weak. I can't be seen to be vulnerable to the vicissitudes of life, when actually we all are victim to that. Bad things happen, and it impacts us. And to just go, yeah, bad things have happened. I'm trying to deal with it. I'm struggling. Do I need help? No, I don't need help, but I'd need some support. I need a bit of understanding. I need an arm around me. There's nothing wrong with that. But we've been conditioned to, you've got to deal with this stoically and whatever. But actually, when you look at the Stoics, that's not the way to deal with stuff.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I've seen over the years how people put up their mask, and it's probably more tiring pretending to be okay than it is to just go, listen, dude, I'm not okay. And I mean, we see it all the time. I suppose we see it more with people that are famous, because it gets blurted out in the public about this, that, and other. And I suppose the more of them that start speaking out about how they truly feel, and that would make a massive difference. But I sometimes think that we so blow them up in the media and stuff that we almost trivialize everyone else, because they're just the average Joe that walks down the street, where their problems are just the same. You know, it's and just as important at the end of the day.
And that's, again, social media is bloody awful for that. You know, when you think about, we all have this expectation of how wonderful everybody else's life is because of what we see on social media.
Yeah.
You know, we see people's holidays, and we see, you know, pictures of people smiling, happy, doing wonderful things, and you think, wow, their life's amazing. But we're only seeing a snapshot.
Yeah, the highlights.
And yeah, it's a highlights package. And actually, there's bloopers in there that we're not seeing. And it would be amazing if more of us posted our bloopers on Facebook and Snapchat and whatever else we use, because I think that would go a long way to helping people to go, you know what, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
So-and-so had a bad day. So-and-so is going through a tough time. You know, you see stuff on Facebook, for example, where people will do a vlog, and they'll be crying and talking about something that they're going through, or something that's made them feel emotional, vulnerable, whatever. And, you know, initially I was like, oh, this is just a bit of attention seeking. Then I thought, hang on a minute. This is somebody who's pouring their heart out to the world.
Yeah.
And opening themselves up to people. And when you read some of the comments and the way people pile in, you think, bloody hell, guys. If that's how humanity genuinely is, no wonder people don't want to talk about stuff. No wonder people don't want to open up.
Yeah.
Because there is that pile-on effect straight away. You know, you read anything online, and then you look at the comments underneath, and you think, my Lord, why on earth would anybody want to put themselves up and open themselves up to that from people who know nothing about you, don't know your story, don't know your motivations, don't know the genuine person that you are. It's frightening. And I think that's the real tragedy of our time, is that people are happy to make comments and pass judgment, but we don't know people, and we're not prepared to say, hold on a minute, this is a human being who's going through stuff.
Yeah.
And how can we support? How can we be non-judgmental? How can we just be there?
Yeah. I think that's bang on the button. Is society, it can be a cruel place.
Yeah.
Especially
and if
online.
we're doing that to people we don't know, you know, if you're thinking that's how people jump on strangers, what about somebody who knows me? Would I want to be judged by somebody I've known for 20 years the way those people are judging somebody who's in a similar situation or whatever to me online? Hell no. And so we don't talk about it.
Yeah. And it creates that nasty thing. And yeah, I suppose the social media has created this perfect life syndrome where everyone's got to show how great their lives are. You know, and then no one's immune from it. I mean, we all do it. We all put up, what happened today and what we achieved and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
You know, I started, I don't remember back in lockdown, those gratitude posts.
Yeah.
I started them to teach my kids a lesson at the end of the day. You know, I want you to learn about being grateful for what you have and how it'll change your perspective on things. I mean, that gratitude thing that I did or still do every day changed my life. You know, 14 years ago, whatever it was, when I started doing it. And you realize then how many people just need something and someone to just give them a light at the end of the tunnel to go. And if that light is someone like one of us sharing like a deep, really personal moment where we're having tough times, then, then so be it. It needs to happen. And we need to use the channels that we can and the people that are around us to reach out to more people.
Yeah. And I think this is why, as it was literally just before lockdown. Well, actually, no, it was probably a year or two before all of that kicked off that I was going through some stuff, and I suddenly, it all kind of, it was this perfect storm that hit me of, actually, in terms of how I'm feeling, who can I talk to and be open and honest and not worry about what they're going to think of me tomorrow or the next day, and not worry about when I walk into a room, how are they going to perceive me, look at me, all of those things. And then I thought, if I'm feeling like this and going through this, that must be the same for every other bloke. And when you start talking to people and asking questions and digging in a little bit, suddenly stuff starts coming out and you realize, I mean, I've got friends who I've known since I was 5, 6, 7, 8 that I'm still in comms with, that you talk to, and the kids' birthdays and this, that, and the other, and then suddenly something comes out and you go, what? Yeah. And some real life-changing thing happened to them that they didn't talk to you about, and you think, why wouldn't you? And you think, well, actually, what have I done as that person's friend to make them feel that, you know what, the bottom's fallen out of my world, I'm going to call Will and just shoot the breeze around.
Yeah.
And that was for me the catalyst of reaching out to a group of men that I know and saying, hey guys, we've got to change the picture here. We've got to start being real with ourselves and with each other. Because if we can't, as people who know each other and are good mates and are good people, as far as I'm concerned, then how's the rest of the world going to do it?
Yeah, I suppose that brings up the flip side. Like, what were we doing that didn't allow those people to come to us in the first place?
Yeah. And I think for me, it was a combination of not being, I think it was a self-awareness thing. When I really started genuinely looking at it, I think, yeah, you know what? I've been happy to go with the flow and get in there with the banter and whatever. At what point did I go back to somebody who was the part of the joke and say, hey, I know guys are winding up a little bit, but if you're taking strain, give me a shout, or you know what, do you want me to have a word with the boys and get them off your back, whatever, and it's all very well to think, yeah, I'm there for so-and-so or for my buddies, but how are we acting? How are we showing it? What does it look like? And it's not what it looks like to us, because we're not the one who's going through stuff and is looking for somebody to talk to. It's what does it look like to them? And so it became how do we flip that switch and get to the point where people can go, you know what, I know I can shout out and chat to my mate so-and-so because I'm going through some stuff. And that was when it became the whole, well, if we're going to do it, I've got to tell people I'm there for them, but I've got to also challenge my mates and say, hey guys, you've got to be there for me too. You've got to be there for your mates and your circle of friends outside of people that I know. And together we've got to find ways of doing it. And that was where the whole having conversations and shooting the breeze and having a group where we're posting stuff and sharing and whatever came in. And it's hard work because you've got to invest in yourself to a certain extent, but also be prepared to invest time in other people if they need you.
Yeah.
But the reward is amazing in terms of how much deeper and richer your relationships with people become because of that. And I've got friends who, over the years, you lose touch because they live in Hong Kong or whatever. But actually, more so than a funny text on WhatsApp or whatever, suddenly you're having deep and meaningful. It might be once a year, but it was a real, genuine. Hey, this is what's happening in my life, and this is how I'm feeling, and I'm worried about this. And my kids are doing that, and it wasn't them just giving me an update of their life. There was real, genuine, deep stuff there, because we'd gone, you know what, we can talk, we can be honest and genuine with each other about what we're feeling, what our fears are, and all that sort of stuff. Where before, yeah, I've got his back and he's my mate and I've known him for 25 years, but actually there wasn't that kind of depth and richness to it that there should be.
Yeah. And it's weird because people yearn that connection, but then put up a wall or a fake, or not a fakeness, but a mask about how we're always good and how we're always okay. And then we go, there's no one out there to help me. Yeah. But if we look at the way we behave every day, it's like, oh no, I'm fine. No, I'm good. I'm rocking and rolling. Yeah. I'm smiling, yeah. And you've got the loud mouth, and you keep going. But you get home and you're sitting in a corner, rocking yourself to sleep every night.
Yeah, there's this great video clip that I saw from an organization called Mind that is a charity that works with mental health, and they've got a bloke who's basically pinned by a massive tree on the floor, and his mate standing over him and goes, "Hey, Charlie," or whatever, "how you doing?" And this guy's literally sort of lying on the floor, pinned by this log, and he's going, "I'm fine." And you think that's us, isn't it? You know, your mates ask you, "How you doing?" And you're like, "I'm fine." And you've got real shitstorm happening in your life.
Yeah.
And part of their sort of campaign is a ask twice rule. And I sort of talked about that on the group a little bit. And it's that sometimes we've got to ask twice, how are you really doing?
Yeah.
And be prepared to dig a little bit deeper, because sometimes people just need that, what, this person's genuinely asked. It's not a flippant, "Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you." They genuinely want to know how I'm doing.
And I think, James, there's some stuff that people may think, oh, well, in comparison to so-and-so's life, my stuff is trivial. Like for you, it's not trivial. You know what I'm saying? So if everyone had to think that about coming to me and speaking to me, I'd be having very few conversations with people, to be honest. Just because I have an X package, it looks like this, and I've got X, Y, and Z on top, and you've only got maybe C, but that C for you is as big as my X, Y, and Z. So I think people in general, but probably men as well, mustn't think like, because they think that their challenge is trivial compared to others, that it's not big enough to have a conversation about. Because if that's compounding, all those little tiny bits of compounding, all of a sudden you've got a massive whole herd of, like that snowball just gathers and gets bigger and bigger as it goes down the hill with all little tiny things that are trivial, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I'd like to talk about is that our mental health is like a battery or like bandwidth on your Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And in an ideal world, we always want our battery to be full, or to have 100% connection.
Yeah.
But life happens and it wears down that battery. And how do we top it up? How do we get to the point where we've got 100% connection in terms of our bandwidth, our frequency? And that's the challenge. And the things that people experience is different. So the same as some mobile phones have really good batteries and last a long time, and you can play your music and do this, that, and the other. And others, you put your Wi-Fi on and you just watch your battery go, and that's life. So how can we find ways of making sure we're constantly battery and making sure we've got maximum bandwidth and frequency. And the next layer on top of that is understanding that everybody's battery is different. So what they experience, while it may seem trivial compared to what I'm going through or what somebody else went through, for them, it might be something that's taking a big bit of their battery out. So there's no such thing as my problem is minuscule compared to my problem is my problem. How I'm experiencing it is unique to me. And I think the more people start to recognize that and feel comfortable with that and go, you know what, this is my problem.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with it and I need help or support. And that's okay. Somebody else is going to have a different problem that they deal with differently or that they experience differently. And that's okay. You know, you look at how some people go through real terrible stuff and they come through it with flying colors. And then a little thing happens and it just blows their world apart.
Yeah.
Because we're all built different. And that uniqueness is great, but we also need to recognize it and go, you know what? I'm unique and how I experience and deal with problems is going to be different to the next person.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't trivialize my own problems or problem, the same as I shouldn't look at somebody else's life and go, oh, actually, compared to them, my thing's nothing, so I've got nothing to complain about. I've just got to suck it up and keep going. Because in that sucking it up, actually, you're just draining your battery even more.
And that's exactly it. It's like, you know, I mean, people that know me will know about my triplets and it's hectic and all that kind of stuff. And it is what it is. Like, so like, I'm just a very much get on with life and, you know, be grateful for what I have and not worry about really what I don't have or the issues that come up and, you know, sort of deal with them. And I've had a lot of people say, yeah, I didn't really want to say anything because my problems aren't as big as yours. I said, no, your problems are your problems. Like, I need you to speak to me so that we can get to it, because the quicker we solve it, the quicker you can get back to doing whatever it is, be it whether it's a rugby at work or in your relationship. It's going to start affecting everything. So if you're telling me at rugby you've got a problem, or you're telling me you come to one of my coaching positivity sessions that I host out in the community and say you're having a problem with work, it's going to be affecting all the areas of your life. So if it's what might be a small problem, it might be something very easy to fix or just an outlook. But talking about batteries, we only have enough battery power to deal with today. And then we have to charge our battery tonight again, if that makes sense. And I think when we start worrying about things that happened are going to maybe happen. Then it might not happen. It may happen. It's not even a guaranteed thing that'll happen, but we start worrying about it already, or we start getting anxious and worried about stuff that happened yesterday that we can't change, we can't fix. We can only get better today. We're taking power from our battery that we need to use for today's energy. You only have enough energy for one day. And if you're now sharing that over 3 days because something happened yesterday and something may happen tomorrow, and I don't know what I'm doing today, and all of a sudden you've got 30% battery only left for today because, you know, the other 70% you've spent worrying about stuff that happened or is or may not even happen in the future. And that's why I'm so big on gratitude, because gratitude just brings you straight back to now. It takes you out of the past and the future, and it brings you back into the present. And it says to you, you can't be grateful for something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing how we catastrophize and how our whole world is based around fearing things that either haven't happened or that might happen.
Yeah.
And as hey, I'm living in the now. We're so busy worrying about tomorrow problems when actually we forget about living in the present and being present. And I think so many of us miss chunks of our life where we're so future focused and fearful of what's might happen or might come that we forget about enjoying and being grateful for where we're at right now.
Yeah. it's the age old saying, we use it a lot when we're playing sport: control the controllables. And that's what you can actually physically do about it. And I guess it's a lot easier to do that, or say it, than it is to do it at the end of the day, because emotion gets involved and all sorts of other nonsense. But like when I realized, like, okay, there's nothing I can do about yesterday. The only thing I can do is take a lesson from it if I've done something that I shouldn't have done, and just don't make that same mistake again. Take the lesson, move on, and just try and do things a little bit better the next time around, or react in a different way, or take the emotion out of something when you deal with it. And a lot of us, especially now with this instant gratification, someone will send us a message. Quickest way to be misunderstood is to send someone a text message when you've got something important to say. And then we react from where we are. We don't react from where that person is sending the message.
Yeah, I just a classic. We've got a player that he's not been dropped. He's not starting, so he's in the squad, in the match day squad, but he's on the bench as opposed to starting.
Yeah,
and obviously he's had a moan about because we posted the team, and he's upset that we didn't have a conversation with him.
Yeah,
and my gut reaction was to send a text and explain why he's not starting. I did that, ding, 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 text off. I thought, literally, as I hit the send button, I thought, nah, I should have phoned him and had a conversation.
Yeah,
I would have said the same thing, but if he'd heard it, he would, because it's live, he can ask questions, he can interject and say, but this, but that, and I can then fill in the gaps for him. But he's feeling upset and emotional. He gets a text back from the coach basically saying, these are the reasons why you're not starting. And that's not what he wants to hear. He wants that, okay, I hear what you're saying. I understand that you're upset, and now I need to bring you back to why that is taken.
Yeah.
He's just getting you're upset, this is why it's happened. There we go. So that's going to be a conversation that I'm going to have later in terms of, sorry, I sent you a text. Actually, I should have picked up my phone and called you and have a conversation.
Yeah, it's one thing.
And it makes a huge difference to the players having that. It's so easy to send a text because it's 3 seconds, but actually having a conversation is a way of showing care without talking about caring. I respect you, I care about you, I care about how you feel, and so I'm phoning you to talk you through why I made this decision. I think there is a fear factor involved for a lot of people in having a conversation, because a lot of people are afraid of conflict. But it's not about conflict, it's about sharing information and telling people where you're at and why you've done or not done, or whatever it is that the conversation's about. And there's this huge thing of losing face and of conflict that people just have to get over. And yeah, it's difficult. And obviously we all have different personalities, and for some people conflict is frightening. And I get that. And for some people love conflict and want to have that difficult conversation. But actually there's skills that we can learn in terms of having those difficult conversations in a way that you can feel safe in terms of who you are, but still get your point across. And that's where some of those mental skills that we were talking about come into play. I run workshops on dealing with difficult situations and having difficult conversations, and it's always fascinating that you have these people who run multi-million-pound organizations who come on these courses and genuinely go, I've got to have a different conversation with a manager, somebody on my team, or somebody on the board I sit on, and I'm worried about how it's going to go. And you're thinking, hold on a minute, you're earning more money in a month than I would see in a lifetime. You're running this mega corporation and you're worried about having a conversation.
Yeah.
But they're human. You know, they've got a head, 2 arms and 2 legs, just like me, and they have feelings and they're unique. And if having a conversation is scary for them, that's who they are. And the more we all realize that we have uniqueness and different strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes we've got to up armor ourselves in terms of, okay, this is an area I'm not so strong in. I need to learn that skill. I need to improve on my confidence in that area. That's okay, because that's what life is all about, isn't it? Is getting better. You know, as coaches, that's what we do, isn't it? We help people to get better at what they do, and living is about getting better.
Yeah, and you find, and if you share with people, like I'll often in workshops and stuff, like we'll be chatting, but like I get a lot out of the workshop.
Huge,
other people.
Huge.
I mean, like you talk about having these conversations. We'll use sports as an example with a player that's not necessarily going to start, or he's knocking on the door, hasn't made it. And you can see the disappointment in their face when you've read out the team. And over the last few weeks, I've been a bit bad with that. And like this week, so what I did, like, for example, last night is I grabbed each person. And while everyone else was training, I had a conversation with them on the pitch and I explained to them what I wanted and what I wanted to see from them in order for them to progress as a player. That conversation should have happened before the team was called out. Or it should have happened on Tuesday nights so that next week they know, so Thursday, Saturday, they come in like that.
Yeah.
And we don't want to have those conversations because we want the players to like us. We don't want to be unliked, because, no one wants to play rugby or hockey or cricket or anything for a dragon. They want to know that the coach likes and cares about them. And, you need to be likable for everyone, but you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And I guess you've just got to understand that. And not everyone's going to agree with you.
Yeah.
So as long as you're honest and transparent, even the people you don't get on with, they will value your input because you've just been honest with them and you put forward who you are and where you're at and why you do the things the way you do.
Yeah. And I think the biggest one there alongside that is consistency.
Yeah.
And particularly with sport like rugby, where the challenge is, in as much as I'd like to be consistent in selecting, it's a contact sport. And this week I picked this guy because he's or she is the person that's going to give me ABC.
Yeah.
But now they're injured or they've got a wedding or whatever, and I've got to pick the next person. And there's 2 people that could play that position. Why am I going for one over the other? Well, these are my reasons for going with this person. Have I explained that to the other person? Because from their perspective, they should be the next one in line. And the timing of these things is difficult because obviously things happen, life happens, shit happens. But
it does.
If we can be consistent in some of our behaviors, I think that also goes a long way towards helping people to look at somebody and go, you know what, I can go and speak to so-and-so because I know what I'm going to get from them. I might not like what I hear, or they might not be able to help me, but they are steady. They are reliable. They're that consistent rock that I can go to and shoot the breeze. And I know that whatever I've spoken to them about will remain confidential. I know I'm not going to be judged.
Yeah.
And I know that if they're able to help me, they will.
Yeah. And it's that, I suppose we call it an open door policy in coaching, but it should be in life. But you often hear someone say, I've got an open door, and you go knock on that door and it slams shut in your face quicker than you could go. So I just think that people should take the time to listen to other people and don't come there to judge. Maybe that person literally just needs to blow off steam and vent to someone or just get it off. And a lot of the times, by the time they finish speaking to you or you finish speaking to someone else, you may have got to the bottom of the problem yourself. I mean, I've often started speaking to my wife about stuff, and I couldn't. By the time I finished, I've actually answered my own question. Don't worry about it. I'm out of here. And
Yeah.
off I go.
Yeah. And we are the captain of our own ship, and oftentimes we have the answers, but we just need that sounding board to bounce ideas and thoughts off of, and suddenly they come back at us. And unfortunately, if we're only talking to ourselves and having that internal dialogue, we don't have, and it's not about somebody giving us answers. It's oftentimes it's just about somebody just asking questions. And it's, if you ask the right questions, suddenly you're going, that's a great question. I never thought about that. And actually, this is a workaround. Oh, I've just solved my own problem. But it's being open to talking to somebody and bouncing those ideas off of. And it's, as I say, it's that getting over that fear of, I think being judged is probably, particularly for men, the biggest fear in terms of opening up and really talking to somebody about what you're feeling and what you're going through. It's that, I'm a man, and I'm supposed to be macho, and I'm supposed to be able to deal with stuff. And I think not so much society, but mainstream media's got a lot to answer for in terms of that whole, lone wolf. You've got to be the savior of your own situation, and every man stands on his own. If you look at our evolution, we've never, nobody, no man, no society has ever thrived and survived from people being loners.
No.
We've always depended on other people. When I'm sleeping, you're looking out for the wild animal that might jump out of the bushes and eat me. And then when you're sleeping, I'm doing the same. That's how we've survived and evolved. And all of a sudden, because we've got all this technology and stuff around us, and we don't have to worry about wild animals jumping out of bushes and eating us, we've got this, I'm a self-made millionaire. Well, no, you're not. Somebody helped you get there. Somebody taught you, somebody fed you, and somebody sacrificed so that you could go out and do whatever it was you did to get there.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, but you talk about how we need each other to do things, and because we're all unique and have different strengths, there are people that may be loners, but that doesn't necessarily not make them a team player. They just may enjoy their own company and do things a little differently, but they will bring something to your team or to your community or to your workplace or your relationships or whatever it is that you have that you really need. Because their point of view is, and they're always the one that come up with that one question that just unlocks a whole herd of things, and they'll go, absolutely. But why don't we do this? Or has anyone thought about this? And like, then everyone's sort of has that like why didn't we think about that? Because you're got your head stuck in, and they've taken a step back and gone, I'll just wait here, and then I'll analyze. And the watcher, the quiet person, and they go, why don't we just try this? And then everyone's like, oh, really? Right in front of us, the answer the whole time.
And it's fascinating when you look at group dynamics in terms of organizations, and you have people sitting in a meeting and trying to come to a consensus about something, and you have introverts that don't participate in that because of who they are, and sometimes we miss a lot of really good stuff because of that, and organizations miss real quality because it's the loudest person that gets their point across, and it's all the socially outgoing people who are happy to jump up and express an opinion and don't have that fear of being shot down. And then you've got that one person sitting in the corner with the right answer or the right question who's going, I don't want to put my hand up, I don't want to stand up and say, and we lose out.
That's it's I suppose just accommodating everyone for who they are, really. I'm not really a fan of meetings. It's just a meeting for a meeting's sake sometimes. You know, sometimes the collaboration will come with one-on-one conversations with people in an environment. So instead of sitting 20,000 people down and having a long meeting, you know, you could just have a fly by the desk or on the field or in the shop and just go, yeah, I saw this the other day. Do you have any thoughts on it? You don't have to answer me now. You know, have a think about it and let me know later.
Yeah, come back to me later.
Yeah. And then
and I think it's that kind of, there's that instant gratification thing. I need an answer now. I need to know now. And actually, do you?
Yeah.
Sometimes, here's an idea. Go away, have a think about it. Come back to me later.
Yeah. I like to brain dump, you know, to get my stuff, you know, as things pop in, I'll start putting it down or start working through it in my head. And I've often found, like, I used to want to answer people straight away because I think people need to have that answer straight away. But now I'm like, if it's something like really important and it really needs, if I can answer it, I'll answer it. But now I've thought to myself, sometimes you just need to give yourself some space and say, just let me have a think about it. I'll get back to you later. Because chewing on the fat over it or quickly trying to think of the answer, you're probably not going to get what you needed to get across. And then all of a sudden, 2 hours later, you go, you know what, I should have said that, or I should have added this to the thing. And now I've missed my opportunity and I've missed my boat.
Yeah, it's massive. And again, creating environments where people, regardless of what their personality is, feel safe to say, you know what, I've got an answer to that question, or you know what, we're going the wrong direction here, is a massive skill that a lot of organizations sadly lack, because of the way either we run them, or indeed because there's never been that thought of, actually, is the way we're doing things bringing the best out of our people?
Yeah.
How can we do things differently? And it comes back to what we were talking about with being able to be more open and honest about how we're feeling as an individual. And it's that being prepared to do something different to get a different result, because so often we strive to change stuff, but we don't change anything. So an experiment, okay, it's result. If we put a different chemical in or change the temperature, it's that change that's going to give us a different result. But if we follow the same recipe, if we follow the same procedure, we're going to get the same outcome.
Wow.
And then we're going to have meetings and reviews and fire people because nothing's changed. But then we go back to doing the same thing all over again.
Yeah. What's the definition of insanity?
Yeah. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It is bonkers.
I think I love that
yet,
one saying is how do you get wisdom? You get wisdom through experience. How do you get experience? You get through, bad choices. Through choices that you make. It's the only way. You got to make mistakes in order to get the experience to get to the end result. I mean, I suppose Thomas Edison was the greatest one when they said, well, it was 1,000. You failed 1,000 times. He went, no, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Yeah.
So now I know that those 1,000 ways definitely will not make me a light bulb, but this way does.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. So it's embracing, and I think failure and losing is probably two horrible words, like vulnerability and weakness. You're not failing if you're learning.
Yeah.
You just starting at a different place.
Yeah, I've got a great poster that I have at home, and it's got the background is a lion, and it says, "I don't lose, I learn." And so as a lion, if you attack a herd of zebra or whatever and you don't get one, you're hungry, but you learn the lessons. I've got to ambush a bit better tomorrow, and tomorrow better ambush and they get their zebra. And it's a mindset thing. And that's, again, from an education and training perspective, trying to get people to understand that making mistakes is actually, in the long run, provided you learn from them, is actually more beneficial to a business, to a sports team or whatever,
And
than being
life.
perfect all the time.
Yeah,
Massively.
but fear.
But the key thing is the learning.
Yeah, fear has killed more dreams than failure. Because people just haven't started. Oh, what's Will going to think if I do this? Well, in all due respect, who really cares? You know what I'm saying? Like Will's not going to look in the mirror tomorrow morning and go, oh, today I'm Rob and this is the case. Like Rob's going to look at Rob and go, I think regret would be so much harder to live with than failure.
Yeah.
Because at least if I fail, I know. If I never do it, it's always that what if that hangs over your head for the rest of your life. So what if you fail? So what if you don't get it right? So what if it crumbles? You know, just find another way to do it. Because you're not starting from zero the next time. You're starting with a bit more experience and a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more something else. Okay, I already know those 5 steps don't work, so I can immediately take them out of my game plan and I can replace them with 5 different steps.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about at work. We talk about fear as we use the acronym fear as the sort of expecting or how, let me get this right. It's the fantasizing experiences or fantasized experiences appearing real. So oftentimes, you know, we think about something and go, that's the worst thing that could happen. Oh, that's going to happen, and we start really catastrophizing and going over it in our heads of, if I do this, this will happen. But it hasn't happened yet. No. You're just thinking about it. And then we start overthinking it and we start stressing about it, and then a non-issue becomes a problem. And then suddenly we get hamstrung by it and we don't do or be the best we can be because of it.
Yeah.
When all it is we've catastrophized something that hasn't even happened yet.
And may not happen.
And may not happen. And actually, if we just said, you know what, I'm going to go this path, I'm going to give it my best shot. These are the resources I need. Off I go.
Yeah, that's it. But
if it doesn't work, I've learned a lesson.
Yeah, and then you get back to your battery power for today. You've used up all your battery power worrying about something that may or may not even happen. And I suppose the challenge is, you know, you put an energy out there, and if you've got your 2 guys in your head, you've got your positive and your negative guy. Whoever you wake up in the morning first, and your thoughts will lead you down that road, not because it's bad things are going to happen, but because your brain is now actively looking for the bad things that are going to happen, because you woke up and you picked your toe and you spilled coffee and toothpaste in your eye and all sorts, and you go, oh, but today I'm going to have a horrible day. Guess what? Today you're going to have a horrible day.
It's coming. It's coming.
You decided that you've had a horrible day before you even started.
Yeah.
And it's same as playing sport. Before you get to game, oh, they're really big, they're really strong, we never beat these guys. Guess what happens? And you may be the better team. And you've talked yourself out of the result because of a preconceived belief about what you think in your head, instead of going, well, I really back my skills and I'm really good at this and I have a really good shot at winning this game, and I'm going to give everything I have and the result will be the result irrespective. I trust my processes, and whether it's in life or sport or whatever, that scoreboard somewhere will look after itself. And it's not always going to be on the right side of the scoreboard, because that's life.
No, that's life.
Those are the lessons that you learn to get the scoreboard on your side the next time you're out doing whatever it is you're doing in life or sport.
Yeah. Just the other day, I was chatting to a young person who's very keen on getting more responsibility at work. And I said to her, okay, what have you done about it? What do you mean? Well, have there been any internal roles advertised within your organization? Yes. Did you apply for anything? No. Well, why not? Well, because I didn't think I'd get them, because they might be looking for people with more experience than me. Well, as a starting point, how do you know that? Did it say that in the job description? No, it just said what the job spec was. And could you do those things? Yes. No, in terms of what I do, I can definitely do those things. And having that particular role or title would give me more bandwidth to do more and have more responsibility. So I said, well, so what's stopping you? Oh, but I think they want more experience. Did you ask the HR person what they were looking for? No. Well, why not? And it's that, we hold ourselves back by fearing what might not happen. It hasn't happened yet. The worst that somebody, you can apply and they can go, thank you very much for your application, but actually we're looking for this. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Go and speak to your team leader. I would like more responsibility in the future. Yeah. I applied for this role. I didn't get it. This was the feedback. Can you help me build up that experience? All positives. Team leaders going, I've got a person in my team who wants to learn, who wants to grow. Fantastic. Yeah. And if they're not thinking that, then you need to get rid of your team leader. Yeah. But that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, that's a whole different podcast. Yeah. but yeah, it is. It's a fear of failure or fear of what people are going to think. And I think that's probably the biggest issue, is if we can just say, listen, guys, and if you speak to someone and they're not receptive to you and you think they're your friend, are they really your friend? You know what I'm saying? There's someone you'll meet who's a complete stranger who will sit there and empathetically listen to you, just give you an ear and turn around and go, have you ever thought about doing this? And leave it at that.
Yeah. And on that point, it's amazing how many stories you hear of people who have good, close relationships and friends and whatever, who have a problem and they unburden themselves to a complete stranger. And then they talk about it afterwards and say, I felt so much better. And this person I'd never met, I sat on the train with and I cried for 20 minutes and they hugged me. And you go, your partner, your best friend, one of your siblings, whatever, me. Yeah. What's up with that? But
yeah,
that sadly says something about all of our close contacts than it does about strangers, because, wow, surely the first person you should be going to and unburdening yourself is somebody that you know and trust and have a relationship with.
Yeah.
The fact that you're going to somebody who doesn't know your story might actually judge you more, and feeling comfortable to say, I'm feeling really shit and I just need to get it out. It's really, really sad. It's a real indictment on our society and where we're at.
Having said that, though, there are just those people, if you sit down next to them, that you can speak to them and you can be completely on. They are there. I mean, I've had random strangers walk up to me at a services station out the north of Southern Africa, like I completed my own to go see a client, and the guy came out with something really personal about him and his family, and I was like, like literally just walked up to me and started speaking to me. I was like, I'm not really the person you should be speaking to this about. But it sounds hectic. And I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
But it caught me completely by surprise.
Yeah, I bet.
But he just probably felt he needed someone to speak to,
Yeah. And this is the thing. Sometimes we do need to just get it out. It just, you get to that point where you just need to get it out. And I think, again, part of the conversation that I've been trying to promote is that if somebody comes to you, you don't have to have the answers. You don't have to know everything about anything. You just have to be present. You just need to be in that moment with them and empathetic. That's all you need to be.
Yeah, that's it. And I've had a lot of people over the last little while, and they've come and they say, like, I've got no one to speak to and I feel down and stuff like this. And I just say to them, well, if you feel that way, a good starting point maybe, to start your day off like this. I'll give them the 5 steps I call winning the morning to win the day type story. But then I say, sit down at the end of the day, grab a piece of paper and a pen or a loved one, and then go write. Or do it around the dinner table, and everyone at your family can have, or your friends, whoever's around the table, can have a chance to say this. And each of you says, what worked for me today, what didn't work for me today, and what can I do differently tomorrow? And if each person does one thing of those each, or you do it on yourself on a piece of paper, you'll see the difference. I said, but it works so much better when you do it with someone.
Yeah.
And it's such a good exercise.
Yeah. And it's creating habits, isn't it? And it's creating positive habits. And I think this is, again, going back to that apathy and fear and stuff like that. There's so much information out there that's helpful about how we can improve our well-being and our mental health. But everybody goes, but that's a bit naff. Or actually, now you're asking me to get my kids around the table and have a conversation at dinner when all I want is to get food down my face and go and watch TV or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the effort. And the minute people realize that investing in those conversations, investing in those habits, those positive lifestyle habits, those positive mindset habits, is going to make a world of difference to their life. When they get that, oh man, we'll be laughing.
Yeah, and that's it. And you find out things that you may never have found out by asking this, because I think what you do is you start finding things that are important to people that you never knew about. You know, like people would, like I've always been the rugby guy, but like I love looking at the things of the psychology behind it and how people's minds work and why do people do things? How do you do differently? How can I look at it differently in order to be better the next time? You know, and like people just go, oh, he's 6'2", weighs 110 kilos and smashes people on a rugby field or gets smashed on a rugby field. I'm like, well, no, that's not all it's about. Like, there's so much more to it. And but I guess like I've taken those lessons from rugby and put them into my life. Like, so when the challenges came up in my life, I was ready to deal with the challenge. And I was like, okay, I've done this. I'm used to having a team around me. I need to get people to help me. Or who can I go to get around this quicker? Because there was a long time where I did things on my own and just would go head first into the wall and be the typical example of insanity.
Yeah. But you learned and you changed.
Yeah. Took a while, but it worked.
Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating how so much of the things that we need to help improve our lives, make us feel better, are things that we actually know. We already have the answers, but we're just looking in the wrong places. Yeah. Or we're not willing to invest the time or the effort to make them work. And that for me is the real tragedy. You know, little things like, you know, people go, oh, I'm too busy to make time for exercise. I'm too busy to make time to invest in my mental health.
Yeah.
I'm too busy to do a well-being exercise that's going to benefit me. I'm too busy to be mindful. You think, but fundamentally, your physical health and your mental health are the two biggest things you have. Yeah. If those things break down, that's going to ruin your day. That's going to ruin your life. And yet those are the things that we...
Yeah. No, I agree. And I suppose you can't fill someone else's cup if your cup is empty.
Yeah.
So you need to refill. And it's, I suppose that one picture is, it's like you talk about a battery. We wouldn't let our cell phone battery get to empty. Like, I don't know, one person, like people freak out when their mobiles get flat. They're like, oh, what am I going to do? My mobile's dude, you're literally about to die because your battery's flat and you're worried about your mobile phone. Like, put the phone down, charge your battery, get up. You spend, like, one of the things that changed for me is I don't go onto my phone before a certain time in the morning. Like, I have to do a whole bunch of things before I'm allowed to open my phone and do whatever mindless scrapping I want to do, or emails, or speak to people, or something. So I look to make sure there's no emergency messages quickly. And if there's nothing that's an emergency, I will go and do whatever I need to do. I've just found that it's, if you've got that half an hour for social media in the morning, you've got half an hour to do something to improve your life.
And this is the thing, you know, when you work it out in terms of minutes, if you looked at exercise, for example, you know, if you exercise for 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, that equates to less than 1% of a week. 1%. And yet we're all, I'm too busy to exercise, don't have time.
Yeah.
Well,
but you're on your phone for 5 hours a day.
Really? Yeah. When you, and that's a really frightening thing when you put one of those apps that tells you how much time you spend on apps on your phone, and you realize how much time, how much of your life is going to that.
So my goal is to see how many percent I can get down every week on my usage. And bring it right down, because it's like, and you find sometimes when you're struggling with stuff, it's just a lot easier to get mindless and switch on the TV or just jump on your phone and look. And it's like, I started getting the mindset that, like, if I'm getting into that position where I want to just sit and rather just watch TV. And sometimes you need that day where you just switch off and just say, right, I'm done. But then you need to disconnect from everything. And that means put the phone down, put on, I don't know, Bad Boys or Lethal Gun or some funny movie or whatever it is that you want to watch, or series programs. I like to watch like documentaries about, like, you know, the Tom Brady just did one of Man in the Arena, you know, stuff like that. I like to watch it and see how their minds in that work. But that's me switching off, is watching that stuff. But then I thought to myself, if I'm going to get into that, what can I rather do? If I'm going to read something, what can I rather read instead of? So I'd rather now I'll grab a book and read 10 pages of a book and try and get better at something than just sit there and go, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And again, this is where technology can be a good thing and can be helpful. But when you don't use it correctly, it can actually impact negatively on your well-being. And it's learning how to manage that. And you know, like everything in life, you know, there's no manual for marriage, there's no manual for raising kids, there's no manual for dealing with technology. We've all kind of been left in the Wild West to work it out for ourselves. And this is where having conversations with people who are getting it right, and even if they're not getting it right, sometimes it's learning lessons. Okay, I've had a conversation with somebody, and actually they're having even more of a problem with X, Y, and Z than I am. But I've learned something. I've learned how they got to where they're at, and so I now know some of the things I need to try and avoid to not let my situation get worse.
And who knows, you might help them out with their problem as well.
Absolutely.
You
know, and that goes back to what you said at the beginning about a problem shared is a problem halved.
That's it. There's so much more to add to that. It's just I think if you had to take anything out of today, it's like, just speak to someone that you know that you can trust, or find someone that you think you can trust and have a chat to them. And just, you'll be surprised at the outcome. I think 99% of the time.
Massively. And you know, to go with that, I think you have to invest in a relationship. You know, you can't just suddenly turn up and say, "Oh, I've known you for 20 years. I trust you, so I'm just going to unburden myself." And well, you know me for 20 years, but you haven't spoken to me for 10 of them. So, you know,
Yeah. And that's it.
And this is it. Absolutely. If you're in a crisis, then if that's a person you can trust, absolutely have a chat, have the conversation, get it out, get the support and help. But we also have to invest in relationships so that when the crunch comes, there isn't going to be that, oh, can I talk to so-and-so?
Yeah.
I absolutely 100% know I can pick up a phone, I can drop them a text, I can send an email, and they will respond. They will be there for me. They might not solve my problem. They might not have all the answers, but they will be there.
Yeah. And don't be scared. Take the leap.
Yeah. There's a lovely Zen saying that I really enjoy, and it's leap and the net will appear.
Yeah.
And I just think, you think about life and all the things that we don't do because we're scared of what might not happen or what might happen.
Yeah.
And that just always for me is like, you know what? Leap and the net will appear.
Yeah.
It might not be the net you were expecting, it might not be the outcome you're expecting, but something will happen.
Yeah.
And
there's going to be a result of some sort at the end.
Yeah.
It's my favorite one in Field of Dreams was where they just said, build it and they'll come.
Yeah.
And that'll be whatever the result will be.
Yeah. I think we're too kind of het up around this is my perceived perfect outcome, and if it doesn't happen like that, then it's a failure. Therefore, what are the chances of succeeding? Oh, 50-50 or 60-40, whatever it is. I'm not prepared to take that risk. When actually, take the risk. If it doesn't work, so what? You've lost nothing, but you could have gained everything.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the fear of the. I mean, I still get it. Like I struggle a bit with it, having to have things perfect, before I share it, type of thing. And it took me, and I still get it, even though I know I shouldn't. Where I'm at that now, just get it done, because done is better than perfect. And it's.
I had the same. Yeah, you're thinking, I want to get this out there, and it's got to be bright and shiny and internet perfect, because people are going to look at it. And actually, you know what? People want real.
Yeah.
People need real. And even if somebody looks at something that I post or say or whatever and go, oh, it's not bright and shiny, and then maybe it's not for them, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. But this is me. And I'm not perfect. So why would I want to portray myself as perfect?
Yeah. And I think on that note, I mean, like, we'll share things that are, like maybe something that we've experienced in the last week, and we just sort of want people to have a look at it. And I suppose us in that coaching sort of circle will probably do it more than most people, because we're offering the solution. Like, this has happened to me, and I found a way around it. Let's all help each other. And you'll be surprised who in your network is quietly sitting there watching.
Oh yeah.
I'll get messages from the strangest places, and they go, like, really, you of all people? Okay, I'm glad I could help you, but it was quite a shock when I received some of those messages, and how some people were like, they couldn't wait every day to see the great gratitude videos because it was helping them through a day. And like, I was like, it literally, I didn't think it would have the impact that it did at the end of the day.
And this is the thing, being the best of ourselves and giving the best of ourselves to other people, you might never see the impact, but it's that thing of, a small pebble can create a ripple, and that ripple effect, you might not see what it does, but you see those ripples go out, and they're going to have an effect. And if it's a positive ripple effect, there's so many more people who are going to be benefiting from whatever it is that you've said or done or shared.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, we don't live in isolation. We live in a community, and if we look after each other, our community is going to be better.
Yeah.
And that's
We're
good
not
for
meant to
everyone.
do it on our own.
No. And technology's made us soft in that we think we can do it on our own because we don't need other people to physically protect. I have my house and I have my car. So when I'm out on the road, I'm in my car with its bags and that and the other and crumples and it's, in Cap 6 and whatever. And when I'm in my home with all my security systems, I'm safe.
Yeah.
I'm alone. I've still got problems that are plaguing me in my head and in my heart. And
And that's where you need the other people to come in and just
Correct.
help you out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've covered quite a lot today. So any final thoughts before we call it a day?
Yeah, I think again, at the end of the day, your focus on that is massive, and I think being grateful for, I like to talk about taking pleasure in small things, small S, small M, and then capital A, L, and it's that taking pleasure in all things, but you start with the small things, because sometimes we kind of, I bought a lotto ticket and I didn't win the Mega Millions. My life is terrible, but I have a loving partner and great kids and a healthy home and my health is good. And we forget about all that stuff and we're obsessed about the fact we didn't win the lotto. And it's that just taking pleasure in small things. Oh, wow, I woke up this morning and it was pissing it down with rain outside, but there was a rainbow.
Yeah.
So rather than focusing on the rain, wow, there was a rainbow. It was beautiful. What a thing to wake up to.
Yeah.
So yeah, taking pleasure in small things, I think, and gratitude. But I think probably most importantly is that just getting an idea of what you're passionate about. Because once you've focused in on and honed in on your passion, you can then start living more purposefully. Yeah. And in that living purposefully, you're going after your passion. You've got a purpose and a focus. And that then will give you that kind of self-awareness of, I'm taking strain, I need help, and I'm going to go out and get it. And it might not be help in terms of somebody physically or emotionally doing something. It might just be having that emotional support, knowing I've spoken to so-and-so and they've said, listen, I've got your back. If you need anything, give me a shout. I'm not thinking that they might. I know that they will because they've said so.
Yeah.
Because that then will allow you to be your best self and to have the most positive impact on the world. And that's what life is all about, ultimately.
Yeah, agreed. I think so. And once again, it's, let's take that leap of faith. Something, you might not get what you ultimately wanted, but you will get something out of it one way or another, or you might get more than you anticipated. Absolutely. But I guess the long and the short of it, if you don't jump, you'll never know.
No, that's it. Yep. Leap and that net will appear.
Yeah. Keep the faith. All right.
Yeah.
But, well, thank you very much for your time. Great chat.
It's been amazing to catch up. Yeah. Always a pleasure.
And
let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, we must definitely. We can do loads of these and a whole herd of different things, which is quite cool. So thanks a million for your great insights. We'll definitely do this again. And folks, thanks for listening. We will catch up with you soon. Have a fantastic one. Emery out.